So what exactly is a March brown? If you've been tying or fishing for a while, you've probably heard of this thing. Well, it's a mayfly, which means in its adult stage, or done, that it's got a pretty slender body, a long tail, and then upright wings, kind of like a sailboat. And as far as mayflies go, well, they're pretty big bugs. Even here on the East Coast, you'll find them as big as 12s and 14s. So when do they hatch? Well, usually they start in March. And what color are they? They're kind of a brown. So it doesn't take a lot of research to figure out how they got their name. And this is not at all a forgotten fly. In fact, you'll find it in almost every basic fly tying book out there, in every stage of a bug's life. And like a lot of flies, it was originally tied as a wet fly. It first appeared as one of the dozen flies that Dame Juliana Berners described in her A Treatise on Fishing with an Angle, published in 1420. So yeah, 600 years ago. But this thing can also be tied in all the standard forms of a dry fly. Dave Hughes has examples of it tied as a parachute dry fly, as a hair-wing dry fly, and a comparadon. And in Mike Valla's Founding Flies, he has examples of it tied how Preston Jennings and Art Flick did, which is pretty much a Catskill style. And that's what I'm going to do for you today. But first, I want to talk about this new cape I just picked up. A half cape by Ewing. Right now in March of 2023, this thing is about $25. And my first impression of it was maybe that it's an equivalent of a whiting and a bronze gray, which would be a great thing if it was, because these things are still $50. But it turns out it's not quite as nice as a whiting. I mean, you could find any individual feather here on this Ewing that would compare to any feather on the whiting, but for the most part, there just aren't as many of them. And since it's a little bit smaller of a cape, the feathers just aren't as long. Maybe on this Ewing, you might start out with a feather tying a size 12 or 14, and then by the end of it, you're tying down to an 18. Whereas in this whiting, maybe you got a feather here that's a size 16, and it's a 16 through the whole length of it. And when you have a case like that, you can often tie more than one fly with a single feather. But that being said, these Ewings are still pretty nice capes, and if you're in the market for an economical dry fly hackle, yeah, they're worth checking out. And lastly, nobody paid me or prompted me for this little review, not Ewing or Whiting or Jay Stockard. It's just my honest opinion of a couple different hackle suppliers. So there's one in the vise, just a March brown mayfly done. Now, if you can tie this thing in this style, you can pretty much tie any mayfly done in any size that you typically tie them. 10 to 16 would be good for this one. This is a size 14 barbless dry fly hook. And I'm gonna go with an orange thread. That's how Valla said Art Flick did it, and I think in Dave Hughes' book he had orange thread as well, but you'll see plenty with tan or light brown. Now in these style flies, I do the tail before the upright wing, and this is just maybe 10 or 12 fibers from a grizzly hackle feather. And I'm going to catch it in about a body length, maybe even just a little bit longer. Now it's Parker thread, not too far up, but maybe a little bit more than halfway, maybe a third of the way back. Now for the upright wing, just a couple little tufts of mallard flank, and I will spin it together just to try and unmarry them. And for the length of them, you want it to be maybe to the top of the hackle. And remember, if you are tying this Catskill style, your hackle is going to be at least 1.5 to 2 times the hook gap. So I think that's probably about 1.5 right there. Now a few wraps to smooth this out. Now let's prop these up. And it's not going to take too many wraps. They're pretty pliable feathers here. So just a few wraps up in front, get them standing mostly upright. Now they're not split yet. You'll want to do that with your fingers. Just even, if you can make that. Probably not a real big deal either way. But I'll do a couple of wraps from back to forward. Then come on this side and do a couple of wraps forward to back. Now take a look at them. You don't want them totally spent. You want them a little bit upright. I think we're going to be fine right there. So let's go ahead and take our thread to the back and put some wax on it. And you might not really need wax because this fox fur I'm using, this is kind of, it's under fur and a little bit from the sides and the belly, and it's really soft stuff. I've got an annoying feather or barb right there that I'll try to pull up, but go ahead and dub this on, and not a big noodle. It can be pretty thin. We're just going to take it up a little bit behind that wing. Now for the collar hackle, just dry fly hackle, 1 grizzly and 1 ginger. Now this is where I can kind of tell the quality of this Ewing feather versus this whiting. The whiting was a bronze grade Hebert minor, and this Ewing was their, just that regular one I was talking about. And the whiting is still higher quality. Yes, it's more expensive, but it might be worth it to you. So I caught that in behind the wing, several wraps up in front of it, and catch it in where we'll probably get 2 full wraps behind it and then 2 or 3 in front of it. And when I say 2 wraps, I mean 2 wraps of both of these at the same time. So it's really putting 4 wraps of feather down. So 2 each really. And then 2 or 3 in front of it. That's 2, and I really don't want to go anymore. It would be a little bit too bushy. Maybe, I wonder if I could do this, just do 1 more wrap with 1 of them. That's a little hard to do. You have to be pretty nimble with your fingers, but okay, I think we got it. Now let's catch these off, and we still got plenty of room up here for our head. And before I do that head, I do have a few fibers right here. I could try and trim those, but you know what? Maybe it will be easier to just pull them back. They're kind of long enough that I can just hold them back while I work on my head. Don't want them swept back, but I think I'm going to be fine. They'll still be coming out mostly perpendicular right here. I'm going to have a little bit of cleanup and trim right there, but let's go ahead and wet finish and then we'll take a look at it. Yep, I've definitely got some going forward right here, so we'll snip them real quick. And you could always pluck them with your tweezers or singe them, but if you can get them with your scissors, it's probably just a little bit quicker. So there we go. Any cleanup for this? I'm not going to worry about it. The body looks fine. I think I've got pretty much the right amount of hackle, so I think I'd drop a head cement on this thing and it's good to go. So that's it, my friends. I appreciate you watching. Y'all take care, and we'll see you next time.